Welcome to Garden Wise Adventures. My name is Malie, and tonight, and it's late at night, it's time for me to do another video. Now, I was potting up some plants and figured I needed to do a video on why I pot up plants. Now, we've talked about potting up plants a lot, but this time we're going to be taking my 4-inch containers that I potted up last time. I potted them up from a little tiny 6-pack into this 4-inch container, and we're going to talk about why I'm potting it up into a gallon container and what happens if you don't. Now, there were quite a few plants that I potted up into gallon and 2-gallon containers in the last video that I did. It's been probably about 6 weeks, I think, maybe not quite that long. I'll see if I could put the amount of time that's passed on the screen. But I wanted to show you the difference between the ones that were potted up and the ones that weren't potted up. So let me show you my grow room, what's going on in here, the ones that I potted up, the ones that I didn't pot up, and then show you how I put them in my 1-gallon containers. Now, my grow room has changed a little bit since we last talked. We've gotten rid of a few things like the kale that had spider mites on it. So did the chard, so we got rid of those. Potted up some new chard. Let me move this chair here. And I just barely potted up this chard. I think it was last night, actually. Last night we potted up this chard. These are roselle plants, and I might actually be getting rid of those because I found some seeds for a different kind of hibiscus where you harvest the red calyx for tea that ripen earlier, like in July and August. These ripen in September, and they barely have time to ripen before our first frost, and then they usually die. So I don't get a great harvest off these, so I might be changing those out. This tomato also had spider mites, so we've been spraying it with an organic spray and giving it a little more fertilizer. We actually harvested quite a few tomatoes off of it, and we have lots more coming on. These are my golden berries, and this is another one where, let's see, get the dirt off of it. These are ones that I just barely potted up into gallon containers. And these are other ones that I found, a new variety of golden berry that ripens early. So we may try those side by side. We've got my dill and my radishes, and I'll put out a picture of a salad that I harvested. These are my salad greens with some mesclun that are looking really good. We've been having some good salads off those. And let's show you right here. Here's the difference that is very clearly visible. So these two seeds, these are Golden Harvest cherry tomatoes that were planted at the exact same time. This one in the back that is so large and starting to flower and actually starting to set fruit was potted up about 5 weeks ago. This one was not. This one stayed in a 4-inch container until last night, and then I put it in a 1-gallon container. The larger container allowed the roots to spread out and give me a larger, more vigorous plant. Let me show you the difference between this one too and another one that I potted up. So here they are side by side. This is a, let me see what it is. Oh, this is a Groovy Tunes micro dwarf tomato. It's going to get about 12 inches tall. This one is starting a few little flower buds. This one, the flower buds aren't that much more ahead, but the growth of the one that I put in the 2-gallon container 5 weeks ago is vastly different than the one that stayed in the 4-inch container. Now I potted this one up into a 1-gallon container because truthfully, a 1-gallon container is all it's going to need. They will get larger if you put them in a larger pot, but not much. And it's not going to affect the fruit production. Let's show you the difference between the peppers here too. So these are both Antohi peppers, seeds planted at the same time. They look similar, but this one is a lot more vigorous. We've actually got a little pepper starting right there. And on this one, actually, we've got a little pepper starting in there. So production is going to stay about the same, but we've got a bigger, more vigorous plant. And then we don't have a comparison because I never start cucumbers in smaller containers. I always start the seeds in large containers. Let's show you the production on this cucumber. Look at that. I will put the name on the screen because I totally forgot which one this is. But we've got so many cucumbers coming on. These are a parthenogenic cucumber. which means they don't need pollinators. Look at all the baby cucumbers in here. We're going to have so many cucumbers indoors on this plant in a 2-gallon. Actually, this is a 5-gallon container. And we've got more little tiny ones starting down there, and some even down here. So we're going to have as many cucumbers as we want. Let's pick one. Let's see, which one's the biggest one? They're not huge cucumbers. This is about as big as they get, but they are really, really delicious little cucumbers. And then just for fun, we're going to show you all of the little cole crops that I potted up. We've got some broccoli that I started after I did the video. On the cauliflower, kale, chard, let's see, we have cabbages and kohlrabi. We've got all sorts of stuff here that's just about ready to go outside. We had to restart the onions because I didn't have as a good a germination as I wanted. So we have 1, 2, 3 more pots getting ready to be started, so we could put those outside beginning of April, end of March. Now when I pot up plants, I use my own homemade potting mix, and it's a mixture of coconut coir, compost, and perlite, and I'll put a short video up showing how I put those together. And I add a little bit of organic granulated fertilizer to that. But I don't depend on the organic granulated fertilizer because that is very slow release. That will actually even help the plant once I plant it outside, because these will all eventually be going outside. Some will be going into the green stock. A lot of the ones in the big 2-gallon containers I'm going to harvest indoors, and then I will put the 2-gallon containers out on my patio once it's warm enough and just harvest those as patio plants. But so the granulated organic fertilizer is for long term. So since the organic granulated fertilizer takes a while to be able to be released, it takes soil microbes to be able to break it down so that the plants can use it. Instead of just solely depending on that, I will depend on a synthetic fertilizer that is slow release. The slow release fertilizer will give it a quick feed, make sure that the plants have plenty of nutrients while they're growing in the pots, and then the longer term organic fertilizer is going to possibly even help them outdoors when I put them outdoors. So let's show you how I pot these up and talk about what I'm potting up today. Now the plants that I'm potting up today are called golden berries. These are a physalis, and I can't remember the name exactly. I'll put that on the screen. But they are absolutely delicious. But like I was telling you before, these ripen in September, just before the first fall frost. And even if I start them really, really early indoors, and sometimes I don't get a great harvest off them. So I will be potting these up, but very likely I'll end up getting rid of 3 of these and starting 3 more of the new physalis and see how those work. See if I like the flavor, see if I like the ripening time, and see how well they do on my property. But in the meantime, let's just pot these up anyway, just in case I change my mind. So the first thing that I need to do is make a hole the same size as this pot in my gallon container. The roots are okay in here. They're not there's not a lot of them. There's no need to mess it up. I'm just going to stick it down in that container. Make sure it's well stabilized. Sometimes I'll bury them a little bit deeper than they were in the regular pot. Well, in the 4-inch pot, though. I guess it's not a regular pot. Make sure that's cleaned out a little bit. We're going to put some of my Osmocote on there. Now, a lot of people seem to have a lot of fear when it comes to synthetic fertilizers, but synthetic fertilizers and organic fertilizers are actually the exact same chemical composition, except for the synthetic fertilizer is already broken down into a form that plants can use. As I said before, the organic fertilizer needs to be broken down by the soil microbes. Now, this will not poison the plant. It's not going to harm the soil microbiome unless I use too much of it. If you use too much organic fertilizer or too much synthetic fertilizer, that's when you start to see harm. So just follow the package instructions and you should be good to go. So let's get the second one potted up. get that hole in there at the same depth as the container. This one has a little bit better roots. Make sure it's buried deep enough. Now, especially with large pots like this, you want to be really careful how far you fill up the pot. You want to be able to fill this pot, you want to be able to water the plant without having all the water spill out. Add the fertilizer. Now these do come with a measuring cup inside, but I have actually used this for so many years, I pretty much know how much I want on my plants. Then we'll do the last one. Now I always try to save and reuse the soil. This soil is not garbage soil. The soil can be reused, so this will sit in these pots until I need to use it again. And I will use it when I pot something else up. Now I have found that just the Osmocote is pretty good for these plants. They can survive without any other fertilizer. But if I want extra growth, if I want them to be boosted, and it's okay to give them extra growth right now because they're still in the vegetative state, I will give them a boost of liquid feed. And I do that every 2 weeks, about half strength. Sometimes I'll use full strength if they don't feel like they're growing fast enough. Because especially with these Peruvian golden berries, I want them as large as possible when I move them outside. Now I'm going to do some watering here. Make sure they're watered in really nicely. You're going to have to be very careful watering it this first time because we don't want to knock it out of place, and I have done that before. We want to make sure it's watered down to the bottom of the container. And I actually like to water until the water flows out of the bottom of the container. That way you know you've reached the bottom, so you don't have dry pockets where the roots get stalled. We want these to root out as much as absolutely possible. So now these are ready to put under lights. I'm just going to put them under the lights behind me, and then we'll be good to go. So now that I showed you which plants I do pot up and how I pot them up, let me talk to you about the plants that I don't start early and plan on potting up. And those are my regular outdoor tomatoes and peppers. The only reason I have peppers and tomatoes indoors right now is so that I can harvest them indoors. And those will be moved outdoors eventually. But all of my main garden crops, you know, the dozens of tomatoes and peppers that I'm going to be starting for outdoors, I will start 8 weeks, at the very, very latest 10 weeks before it's time to put them outside. Because you can see the plots that I showed you, that was 24 plants, and you can see how much room 24 plants takes. And average tomatoes will grow very quickly in these larger pots, and they will very quickly get taller than my grow lights, and I won't have enough room to be able to have enough light for them. So I want them to stay small, and they will catch up the outside, especially once it gets warmer and the soil warms up. I like to wait until the end of March or the beginning of April to start peppers and tomatoes that are going to go outside. On my cold crops, I start the same, 8 to 10 weeks before it's time to put them outdoors. Then I can set them out under plastic in my hoop houses, and they do just fine because they don't mind the frost and the freezes. Now, I would love to hear if you start any plants indoors, if you like to grow indoors, and if you do any harvesting indoors. If you do, what are your favorite plants to grow? So hopefully this video has been helpful for you. If it has been helpful, I hope you like, subscribe, share it with your friends, and go have a wonderful garden adventure.